Okay. What is this?
23 chromosomes in a cell.
23 pairs of chromosomes. This represents a pair. Everybody with me on that? So that means that we have 46 total chromosomes in a human cell. We talked about mitosis and meiosis. And mitosis is the splitting or cell division where each of them passes on their chromosomes. Everybody with me right now? Mm-hmm. And so the daughter cells, that means the young cells, have 23 pairs of chromosomes. And mitosis continues to do that so that the same chromosomes are inside the nucleus over and over and over again. Okay? And this is an X and X's. But what happens here, I wish I didn't do that. I'm just going to redraw that. Okay, right here. So 23, here's 23 chromosomes, right? Mm-hmm. It duplicates and we get 23 chromosomes here, 23 chromosomes here. But then we studied meiosis, and meiosis ends up with 23 single strands. And the reason that's a big deal because here's a sperm, here's a sperm, here's a sperm, and here's a sperm. Each of those sperm carry half the chromosomes. So then when they meet up with an egg, the egg also carries 23 chromosomes and unite, and you end up with back to 23 pairs of chromosomes. That's what this represents here. A dude controls the number of chromosomes. Why? Because of this. A male cell has an X and a Y. You guys with me on this? The chromosomes split, and again they have an X and a Y. Or the cell splits, X, Y. X, Y. But then when it splits again, we end up with an X, a Y, X, and Y. Are you with me? And each cell has just one of those. So the males are the ones that control, or the sperm are the ones that control if it's a boy or a girl. Half the sperm have an X, half the sperm has a Y. Yeah, Melody.
I don't understand like the 46 part.
Okay, I know this is getting a little messy here. So every single cell, like literally I could draw it like this. Okay, 23 pairs of chromosomes. Right, everybody with me? You have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So each pair is 2, right? So in this one, let's say there's 23 of those. I can't get them in there. But we have 23 pairs like this. That means we have 46 total chromosomes because it's doubled. That's what it means by that. Good question. We're good? Okay? Yep.
If a cell starts with 23 chromosomes,
Yep.
and if it splits, how can the daughter cells have 23 chromosomes as well?
Well, remember in mitosis we talked about they double?
Or they duplicate?
They duplicate so that when they split, each one gets half of those. So they still end up with 23 pairs. So there's a time in a cell where they actually have the doubled amount just before it splits.
Oh.
And that's the mitosis replication that we talked about last year.
So at one point it would have like over 60 or 80.
Well, 46 times 2 would be 92.
So then, I get it.
Okay? All right. Okay, that's a messy bit there. Anything that you want me to talk about specifically before I move on? Okay, and then we talked about these terms yesterday. Natural selection, selective breeding, cloning, genetic modification or gene splicing, and ethics. Okay, well, natural selection is natural. That is in the natural world. And this is what, and it's also called survival of the fittest. Okay, what that means is the weak die in nature. They get eaten. They don't find enough food, whatever the case may be. They die. The strongest ones live, and those are the ones that reproduce. Okay? That's what happens in nature. In the real world, in our world, we choose. We choose what is the best trait. We're talking, do you realize that every single dog came from a wolf? All dog breeds came from wolves. All cats came from wild cats, like an actual cat that's out there still. And what we've done is we've domesticated them. What that means, domestication, we made them nice. We made them kind. We made them loyal. We made them cute and pretty. And we chose those traits. When you went from a wolf, the first thing and only thing they cared about was a wolf that's not going to kill you, right? And a wolf that's going to hang around, and a wolf that's going to listen and obey. So they would choose the friendliest ones. And those wolves became friendlier and friendlier and friendlier. And pretty soon they started looking at the looks and if they were good work dogs or whatever the case may be. And they continued to choose the ones that they wanted until we got specific breeds. You guys saw that with the Belgian Blues, those cows, right? Those Belgian Blue cows in the movie, they selected the ones with the biggest muscles and continued to breed those. Okay, so that's selective breeding. Choosing the organisms with the best traits, they breed, and we go from there. Teacup poodles are the same thing. All they did is they chose the runts. They chose the smallest little dinky things and bred them. It's actually backwards because the runts are typically the ones that don't survive. So that's selective breeding. Yep.
The survival of the what?
Fittest. Fittest. Strongest. Cloning is making an exact copy of a living organism. And the way they do that is they take all those chromosomes that we talked about, they empty out a different cell, a different egg, and they put the new chromosomes in there. And then they grow that in a petri dish, and then they put that in a female of whatever organism it is, and then that female carries it, gives live birth, and then it's an exact clone, meaning the DNA is exactly the same. Okay? We have done cloning of lots and lots of organisms. Sheep, pigs, cows, horses. You can actually get a clone. Do you know this? I didn't tell this yesterday. You can actually get a clone of your own pet, dog. I saw this a few years ago. You could get DNA samples from your dog. I won't talk about the types, but you send that to a place in South Korea, and they will actually clone you your own pet.
Do they give it back?
And then they send it back to you after it's born. Yeah, you get your animal back. Now, is it the same thing? It doesn't recognize you. It's got to go through all those things again, but it's the same pet. It costs like 50 grand or something like that. I mean, that was quite a few years ago, too. So I don't know where it's at right now, but there is something out there with that. Kind of crazy. Okay, next one, genetic modification. Gene splicing. That means That means literally, here's DNA from one organism. Here's DNA from another organism. And this gene right here, let's say that gene right here is glow in the dark. Right? There's organisms that have bioluminescence, and you saw this with the rabbits. And so what they did is they took this piece of DNA and they brought that piece of DNA and they stuck it right here. And so now this DNA is over in here. They spliced it. But sometimes you run issues because they have to put that gene in a certain place. And now it's like they had to take the bioluminescence from one organism, but they got rid of the gene that says they should sleep at night. And then had to put that gene in some other place. So then they had to go from another organism, splice it in. So it's kind of a game that the trial and error, they do it, okay? And the last thing I think I need to talk about is ethics. And ethics is the right or wrong. So I was wrestling around with the ethics today, right? I'll say I made a mistake and didn't make sure that the video uploaded right. I had lots of kids asking me about that. So what's the right thing to do in this case? Is it to just go with the test?
No.
Or is it to give you another day and make sure the information's out there?
Make sure the information.
But on the other hand, I had kids that want to take the test. They studied, they worked hard, they did their note card. Is it fair to them?
Yeah.
Well, that was the ethical question that I was debating. What is the right thing to do to make it fair to everybody? So my ethical decision was, make sure I get this video up again. Make sure those kids that are ready to take the test can take the test. Get this video out and make sure everybody has the opportunity to learn and show their information. Okay, so that was my ethical question for today when I came in. I wasn't prepared to do that. It took me a little while to figure that out, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right, those people at home don't even know that, but that's the deal. Someplace along the line here, you're going to draw your line. Wherever you draw your line, and sometimes it's not just with all of these ideas, but it's with the idea of cloning itself. Some people talk about cloning yourself and putting that clone in a coma so that if you get cancer, if you have an organ that shuts down, you have the ability to go and harvest an organ and you survive. And they don't know any different because they're never awake.
So I could technically see myself, like as a.
Well, there's lots of movies on this. So those are the ethical questions. So what I'm telling you guys, and I want you to think about this, folks, I want you to think about what is your ethical boundary? Are you okay with selective breeding? Are you okay with gene splicing? Because that happens a lot. I'll give you a different example I talked about yesterday. Taking a gene from a pine tree or from a plant that can survive really, really cold conditions, taking that gene and putting it into a food that we want to eat more regularly, like a strawberry or tomato or apple trees or whatever the case, to make them a little more hardy in our conditions. It doesn't sound so bad when you start talking about fruit, but when you talk about humans, that's typically where you're going to draw the line. All right? Let me just zoom out and see if there's anything that I missed. I think I got everything. I'm not promising, but I tried to cover everything. So, any questions you want me to talk about? Otherwise, I'm going to stop the video. Okay, we're all good to go?